Welcome to Metatech Podcast, where we discuss with thought leaders in the Web3 about new technologies, Metaverse, the blockchain, and the future of the internet. Founded by Dora Cohen and hosted by Ricardo, Carreon, and Wendy Lopez.
Welcome, everybody. This is Ricardo Carreon. I'm your host for the Metatech Podcast, and with me is Gwen Supergirl, my co-host. Hello. And today we have a very special guest. She's in France. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Emily, your story. How do you get into the space?
So I am a coach. I coach women and men who are founders and leaders in Web3, specifically people who are struggling with overwhelm, imposter syndrome. And the reason I entered the coaching space within Web3, I mean, there is a really coaching space. I'm the only coach that I know in Web3 right now. And was because I was a leader in the Web3 space and crypto space for 7 years before that. So as a marketing director, I entered the space with Bitcoin.com. I led teams for OKX, AAX, Liquid, Coin, Japan. I went into the DeFi space and I was a fractional chief marketing officer for 2 different funds. And I got to the stage where I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. And I realized that I kind of done 13 years as a marketer. What else was there? What this wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And I realized that deep down at my core, I really wanted to help other people do what I'd done, like get through all the challenges that there are as a leader in this industry and start to break through all the barriers that I'd broken through and still do break through on a weekly basis, I guess. And so that's when I started my podcast, Web3 and Thrive, to help all women in Web3 thrive. And I requalified as a coach, got my AC accreditation, and I really focused on helping other people build better work-life balance, basically.
So you help other people perform their best. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And really get out of the holes that they find themselves in. So I work with people who are very high performers, super, super high performers, and they are working for either big corporates who have entered the Web3 space or crypto blockchain space. And they're in very big roles with huge responsibilities, and they are just overwhelmed. They don't know how, they don't believe in themselves. They have low self-confidence. They feel like they're fake. They feel like they're winging it. They feel like they're basically faking it. And they really think that they should just quit now because someone's going to figure out that they're an imposter, right? So there's lots of these scenarios that they don't know how to manage their workflow, but it looks like they do, although inside it's like really difficult for them. So I work with a lot of people like that, and traditionally it's a lot of women who openly say they have these issues, but I do get men coming to me as well who are struggling, because a lot of the time the men have to put on like a big face and pretend that they're totally fine, but underneath they're like just literally having a meltdown.
So what you're describing is a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of burnout. On the leadership of big Web3 projects. So that's interesting. And how much are people really willing to let you help them? How much is this kind of like, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm still struggling, and I will still be struggling.
Yeah. So before I onboard people, we have a very honest conversation, and it's very much like, this is going to be hard. Like working through these tough emotions, getting really deep on like what's holding you back in your life is really hard. Are you prepared to put the work in? It's really like, when you decide to go to a therapist, it's kind of, you show up, you have a chat, you work through it. It's a bit emotional. This is different. This is like paving the future for yourself by working through all the stuff that's coming up whilst we move forward. So a lot of the time we have to be very honest with each other. And it's a safe space. So a lot of the time people will just go blah and tell you everything. And then it's up to me as the coach to pick the things that stand out the most, and we start working through them.
And how do you realize that was kind of like, not only kind of like your calling or your ability, but how do you realize this was kind of like a big issue and it was something that you can dedicate your life to?
So not just as a woman, I guess it's as a young person, being thrown into a big role. So 7 years ago, I was with Bitcoin.com in a big company. I mean, they weren't big in terms of size, but they were very well known at the time. And especially in Latin America, actually, they were very well known there. And it's having to stand out amongst a lot of men. and a lot of loud voices. And so I realized that I had to maybe be Emily, who was more confident, even though inside I didn't feel confident. And so I was constantly trying to be better, and I had no confidence in my own abilities. So I was always doing courses and stuff about things I actually knew a lot about. I could probably tell you all about it and teach you, but I was convinced I didn't know enough. I was convinced I didn't know what I was talking about. So I struggled a lot with imposter syndrome, and I didn't have anybody to help me because there wasn't this nurturing, compassionate environment for me at work, because a lot of the people who were my bosses were very corporate and quite cold leaders versus compassionate leaders. And that's where I realized, God, if I just had somebody who could have like helped me through these parts of my career, it would have been much easier.
I think that is so important to say, because I do have that syndrome as well, like my whole life, like especially again when you are a woman and you're a young woman, so you have to work like triple, so someone actually listen to you, right? So your voice is like a notice. And I realized like last week I went to a conference and they were asking questions. I was listening to them and I was like, hey, one moment, I know a little bit more about the topic, but I feel so afraid to talk, because if I say something, it's like either that I'm mansplaining a little bit. So this is so interesting that you do. So what has been like the impact that you have seen with this, with these sessions that you have?
So generally, women come to me, or men. I've got one guy, and they start with like a 6 session thing. So like 3 months. And at the start, we say, what do you want to achieve? What do you want life to look like in a year? I don't tend to go further than a year because it's too big for them. They're already overwhelmed, right? What do you want to do in a year? Sometimes it's like, what do you want to do in a month? They pick. And then we work backwards. So we start with putting together their goals. We start with putting together their prioritization. A lot of the time they don't have any frameworks. Like they're literally throwing themselves into the day, waking up, they're on their phone, they're like stressed out immediately. They're not taking any time for themselves. They're like not eating properly, drinking too much coffee. They're like blah, blah, like all the time, like fried. And so of course they're not productive. Of course they don't know how to prioritize. Maybe they do deep down know how to prioritize, but they don't know how to implement this. They don't have a motivation to help them implement this. So it's a big process of getting stuff in place, one step at a time. So I always say to them, what's the one thing, tedious thing that you can do today that's going to help you work towards your goal? Let's do that today. Don't worry about anything else. If that's done, you've had a good day, right? So it's like breaking it down in teeny tiny steps. And the results that I see, one of them, she's on her 6th session, and she's like one of these clients who like does everything, like the dream student, I guess. And she has moved. She's in a big role. She's in a corporate role in Web3, and she's in like a marketing director, chief marketing officer. And she had a big attachment to her role and felt loyal to the company when they were not treating her very well. So she's managed to move away from that. She's managed to not be so reactive. She's managed to focus on and shift her energy to doing things that fulfill her and focusing on her bigger goals, and actually every single day doing the work to work towards that. And she sent me a message like, these are all the things that you've helped me achieve like in 6 sessions. I can't believe it. And I was like, it's pretty impressive. Like, and it's not that I've done it for her, right? I've literally pulled things out of her way and helped her realize things. And that's all. I'm just a guide, basically.
But you know what? When I hear you talking about that, it sounds to me like you're describing something where you're helping them on their self-confidence, and at the end, you will help them also, build their personal brand, right? Because people, I've been working with personal brands, and I think that a lot of people, when you're in a big position and you love that position and you love the company, sometimes you just lose sight. I think that I did that many years of my life, working for large companies, and just kind of like becoming your role and not becoming you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like that. Mm-hmm.
It's like, why is she still doing this? Like, I'm working for the money. So if you're just working for the money, why is it taking over all your brain capacity?
No, it takes your brain capacity, your relations become your work relations, your life becomes your company life, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's fine if you've got your own business and you love it, but not if it's going to not be there in the next 5 years, right?
Right, and nobody really can tell you when it's gonna end if you're just an employee. Yeah, the company might go through some problems and might have to let you go, even if they don't want to let you go.
Yes.
So, and you're saying that women they're like they accept this more. That
I think. Yeah, some do and some don't. Like, it depends on their emotional intelligence sometimes, and it also depends on their awareness. So you need a level of awareness to ask for help. You have to know that there's something going on. You have to feel like something's not quite right and you want to do something about it. So it's usually people with a level, like at least I'd say 20% awareness level, that they know they want to make their life a bit better, but they just don't know what to do. How do I make my life better? Where do I even want to do? Where do I even want to go? What do I want to achieve? A lot of the time they can't quite answer that.
No, yeah, that's right. And how do you see this, evolving in a year in which it has been really tough on some of them because of the crypto winter? Do you see this becoming tougher on the leaders, or you see them a little bit better when they have more time to build and not so much pressure with the financials? How do you see it playing?
Well, there's a mix, really. So on one side, you've got people who are employed, because I still have people who are like not necessarily founders, and they're worried about their job. So they come to me and they are very determined to become self-sufficient. So they're totally fine to keep their job, but they also want to make sure that if they don't have the job, they're also totally fine. So people come to me for that. And it's not necessarily that I help them build a business, but I kind of like help them figure out what they need to do to be self-sufficient. And then we've got the founders, and the founders are a mix. So some of them are up in the air, all over the place, stressed out about raising money. Like they've literally spent all year trying to find funding. Now they don't know what to do. When they come to me, it's like, okay, how else can we make money? It's like figuring out stuff that is right in front of their faces that they can't even figure out like themselves. It's like, why don't you just do this? Why don't you, like, it's not me giving them suggestions. It's the suggestions actually all come from them. I'm just asking them questions to get them to come to the conclusion. And so it's they come to me a bit stressed and they leave with a plan, basically.
Yeah.
I do have a question because this is a very interesting conversation, because we think that Web3 is just about technology, how to build, how everything, but we forget sometimes that we are talking with humans, right? So what has been the challenges that you have faced, like by bringing this awareness into the space? So what are those challenges that you face? Like, yeah.
Okay, so you mean what are the challenges I've faced by bringing these kind of problems to the surface? I don't know if I've faced challenges from building the awareness. Like, do you mean by building the awareness about that we have got problems in this space?
Yes, in general, like what have you faced? Like you have been like, you try to help, like to coach and everything, and maybe you face some challenges, but even also I would like to know how did this start, right? So how that inspired you to help with mental health, with awareness, with the coaching, etc.
Okay, I'll answer the second one first. So I struggled with my mental health earlier on, and I actually in my podcast I talk about this quite often. I don't know if you've listened to it, but I realized that something needed to change. I wasn't happy anymore. Work I was not happy with. I wasn't handling situations the way I wanted to handle them. I was more reactive, and work was just draining me. And I was still doing well. I was still getting results. It wasn't that I was underperforming. It was I just felt totally unfulfilled. And so I got laid off, and that was like the catalyst. I'd kind of been building in the background. I'd started started my coaching qualifications and building in the background an idea of what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure until I hired my own coach. And she helped me realize what I should be doing. And she helped me kind of put a plan together and helped me understand how to put myself first, how to start balancing things, because work and life doesn't have to be an equal balance. Lots of people say, I need a work-life balance. No, you need to figure out what balance works for you. Like if you want to work 80% of the time on your business, or on work, that's totally fine, as long as you know you're intentionally doing that. Not like, you don't want it to be like running away with you. So that was kind of the catalyst. I hired a coach. I had a bit of a meltdown. I got laid off, and it was all these kind of accumulations at one. But I did always know that I wanted to help other people. Like, everybody always told me, I actually did a bit of an exercise on asking everybody, what do you think I'm good at? Because I'm really great at marketing, but I don't want to do that anymore. So who's Emily without marketing? I don't even know. So I asked lots of people the same question: what have I helped you with in the past, and what things am I good at that you could tell me right now? Like, I think I gave them 3 choices, and the things that always came back to me were, you're great at shifting perspectives, helping people see things from a different angle, and you're really great at breaking big problems into really small pieces. And I did personality tests, I did tons of stuff, and I was like, this all kind of fits into a coach. And so that's why I went ahead with that. And I'm very spiritual. And so I went to my healer because I'm a bit woo-woo. And she was like, you've been a healer in a lot of your past lives. I know that this may not fit with your demographic, but that also confirmed to me. I was like, yes, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, you went to the experience. You suffered it yourself, the imposter syndrome, the burnout, and then you decided to help some other people with it. Now, why Web3? I mean, what does it make it different? Helping some of the Web3 founders versus just helping founders.
Right.
What is it different in your practice?
So I would say where we are at in terms of an industry is where, like we always say, this is where like tech was 20, 25 years ago. We're right at the start. And so when I first came into the space, there was no women. We had to basically pave our own way. And it was as if like the industry was just born. So they had to learn how to treat women, how to build inclusive cultures, how not to just have like half-naked women at conferences and have like real normal women who knew what they were talking about. Like, we had to face all these challenges all over again, even though we could have learned from 25 years ago. And so having gone through this whole process, and the fact that Web3 is so cyclical, it's not really like any other industry. It's like, I mean, obviously the finance markets and like the economy is cyclical, and it kind of gives you experience in it, gives you kind of a bit of a different awareness and a different perspective on work and how the world works. And so when people come to me, they literally, I get like people message me and say, I've been looking for someone who's a coach and in Web3 because I think you're going to understand more of what I'm talking about. I think you're going to understand my experience more, because someone outside of Web3 doesn't understand how difficult it is to work in this space. And I think, sorry, I went really round in a long way there, but the short answer is, I think I just understand what the people have gone through, and that's what the difference is.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And how do you see the perspective of what you do moving forward? Are you seeing more people coming and asking for help? Are you seeing less people? Is becoming stabilized, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so my brand's growing quite well. I do a ton of work on it though. Like the podcast is scaling up this year, so we're going to increase subscribers, downloads. I've just hired a social media manager. I'm doing lots of work on it. So the goal is to increase more unique leads. But also I do lots of sales. Well, not really sales, but like I do lots of lead gen. I do lots of outreach. I do like double-ended. So it's more like, I'm a big believer of you can't wait around for people to contact you. I'm like, you have to go and talk to people.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
So how do you see like the future for the Web3 and connected with mental health? Do you think that companies or projects needs to have like this perspective into their projects, and it's not just work, like be a dig and like be 24 hours, 7 days of the week, right? So how do you see this evolve? So I would love to be a pioneer. Like, I mean, that sounds a bit crazy. I would love to help pioneer this, and I would love to make sure that we are all compassionate leaders. And like step one is making sure that leaders understand how to build compassionate teams through being compassionate themselves, understand how to, because emotional intelligence is a skill. Like, not many people realize this. They think, I'm not emotionally intelligent. Well, you can build on that, right? You can improve.
compassion and gratitude is a skill. You can build on that. So building these kind of leaders will really help, and communication skills, working on inclusivity. I want to help at least in some way have an impact. So by doing the one-on-one sessions, I can have a small impact, and I want to figure out how I can have a much broader impact. And next year, or this year's goal was kind of go and speak at loads of events about it. I still haven't actioned this yet, so I'm working on it. And actually, I don't know if you saw the Paris Blockchain Week post I did recently. I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah, tell us. Now I'm curious.
Yeah. So, okay, one of my goals is go and speak at all these events, but obviously there's a large cost associated with this. And I've got another business as well that I can tell you about. And that's high cost. That's like where all the money is going right now. Coaching is not as expensive as that. And so one of the goals is go and speak at all the events in Europe. However, my stumbling block is that it's hugely expensive to get tickets. The flights and transport, it's fine, we can get there, but actually the tickets are really expensive. And so I reached out to Paris Blockchain Week, and they said, yeah, you can come on a panel, but it's 13,000 euros. And I was like, okay, you're charging one person, and there's like 5 people on a panel, that's 13K. You're charging people to attend 2,900. Oh, and if you're a startup, that's another 900. It doesn't quite add up here, right? The ROI is not very clear. And I said, no, thank you. And they even said, oh, well, you can do a side event for free if you want. I was like, well, no, I don't really want to support you because your values really don't align with mine. It's not about the money. And I was like, no, whatever. So then I just flippantly posted about it. I didn't think anything about it. I just posted it. I was like, can't believe that they're charging this, blah, blah. What about the builders? Didn't really think anything about it. And then next time I look, there's like 200 comments on it. And everybody's gone crazy. And they're like, this is ridiculous. How can we change the status quo? How can we make sure this doesn't happen? What about the people who've been in the space for so long and they're bootstrapping and they're the ones who have like formed it. Now they're charging like Coca-Cola 13K or whatever to speak on a panel. How are they bringing value? They haven't been in the space, this kind of thing. So you're going to learn from the people who are builders, who've been there a long time. And so there's big conversation. Lots of people messaged me, and then the COO of Paris Blockchain Week reached out to me, and we're going to have a chat on Monday. So I've got lots of ideas of how we can, because they want to collaborate in some way. They don't want it to end like this. So I was like, okay, I've got loads of ideas. Let's have a chat. So
yeah,
let's see how that goes.
So sometimes it's about to speak yourself about something, because this is the problem that many people wear silence because we are afraid of rejection or bullying or harassment. But sometimes when you just take that strength to say, to voice, right? Something that is not right.
Yeah.
It is, right? That's not
exactly. And I think as long as it's not going to risk your livelihood, right? You should speak out about something. If you're active, I wouldn't say I'm an activist, but I like to make sure that people are looked after. I want to speak out about what's right. And so this, for my industry to grow and move forward, and my mission is to help other people in this industry. How can I do that if I'm not given the opportunity to do it, if I'm blocked by a big fee?
Yeah, that's right. And so how people can find you, Emily? What are kind of like you probably have a bunch of channels to reach you, but what are the ones that, if you can tell us about, hey, you have kind of like this channel video channels or LinkedIn or the different channels?
So I have web3andthrive.com. That's where you can find information about coaching, about the podcast. You can find Web3 and Thrive, the podcast, on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts and Google and all the other distribution channels. And I'm on LinkedIn, Emily Rose Dallara, TikTok, Instagram. You can find me on all those. And I'm also, I'm about to launch a new product called Carreon. And basically it's going to help all of my clients and all my people on LinkedIn. And it's basically removing the trust between a contractor and a client. So it's basic escrow smart contract. And I'm about to release a waitlist for that next week. So
yeah, that's
watch
really
out for that one. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
And what's the idea about that? Is that the one that is taking your money, your investment?
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like.
Yeah, that's development costs. So developers are expensive. So basically, for a long time, throughout this period, I had to chase people to pay me. Even the big exchanges, I had to wait months to get my paycheck. And it was just tiring. Like, I hate it. Like, I had to ask for deposits up front. But if they don't know me, they're not going to pay me a deposit. And it's vice versa, right? I wouldn't just send people my work if I don't know they're going to pay me. And so I was like, why is there no solution for this? I've looked, there's competitors, of course, but they're just missing specific things. Like, they don't have great UX, they don't have great customer support. They're either fully Web3 or they're fully Web2. So we're Web 2.5. They call it like Web3 ready. And basically version 1, so the version that you're going to be able to test next week is USDC. So you would create an invoice in the dashboard, and then you'd send it to your client. They would send USDC to the escrow. You'd upload the deliverables, and they'd confirm, and then you can withdraw the funds from the escrow.
Okay, so it's a Web3 escrow, basically.
Basically, yeah, but with a Web2 UI, it's very user friendly, and that's the goal. That's the key differentiator. But yeah, it's fun. I just decided to build it because I used to build everybody else's products, and I thought, let me just try and build my own.
That's nice. That's very interesting. We need to talk more about that one in maybe in another.
Yes.
That one is very useful.
Yeah.
I'll come and do an exclusive episode on that one.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we can launch it here with us. Yeah. Be very happy, Emily.
Amazing.
Yeah. How do you see the future of all of this going, Emily? We have kind of like time for a last question. So
future of Web3, I would say we're going to move more towards utilizing Web3 in ways that bridge gaps. So, for example, communication gaps. This is why I think, so the Metaverse, for example, you probably talk about this all the time, but
yeah,
Metaverse is bridging so many gaps and helping so many different minorities, categories of people. Education, for example. But when it comes to the way we work, I see all the big governments finally regulate. I mean, people argue back and forth on regulation, but bringing crypto, decentralization, bringing provenance to documents, that kind of thing, healthcare. I think that's where it's going to, obviously we'll go back to the technology. So I feel like the technology is going to have the impact rather than like the NFTs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wendy, do you have a last question for her?
No, any final thoughts that you would like to share with us about like encouraging someone that is new, that is struggling with the workplace or something like that? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, so just know that someone else has been through it, and I'm always here to help. And you can follow me on LinkedIn, by the way, because I give tons of tips and tons of free content. So you don't need to work with me one-on-one to like get a bit of help.
All right.
That was
well,
great.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thanks for listening to Metatech. Please feel free to subscribe and share. We'll catch you in the next episode.